Hey everyone, it is Kristi, and according to the blue box over there on my screen, it's saying that the Hangout is live. So hey, welcome to a rather late-breaking An Atheist Asks that I did not announce, and I could have, but I would just have things on my mind. But I am really pleased in this episode to have with us Foxy from FoxyJazzabelle, and what we're going to do is just have a little chat about, and this series is An Atheist Asks, talks a lot to usually atheist content creators, but it's been expanding out, and the topics aren't only atheism, feminism and other interests as well. So I kind of dusted this off because Jazzy is someone, or sorry, Foxy is someone that I've had a chat with and really enjoyed talking with her, but I don't know too much about her or her channel, and this seemed a great opportunity. So welcome on. Thanks for being on the air.
Oh, thanks for having me, Kristi.
So for those of you who don't, for the people in the audience who don't know about your channel, should we just start there and start a little bit about what your channel currently is, and then we can talk about how it got to be what it is.
Oh, well, at first I didn't really use the channel, but then because, once Google and YouTube came together, or once Google absorbed YouTube, you just get a channel basically just for having a Gmail account. So at first I was just, watching favorite videos and saving videos and favoriting and stuff like that. But then during my studies, I had to take an intro to speech course. And since I take online courses, I had to record speeches that I created and then submit them for school. So that kind of started, that's what planted the seed for vlogging. So then I was like, oh, well, it could definitely prepare me to start making videos for an actual channel and actually share things I have to say. So at first I started out talking about some atheism topics. I think at the time I started talking about when Atheism Plus really started coming out, and I was more of the opinion that it didn't really need a plus. I thought it was just, fine as it is, because to me, I feel like it's a perspective that you come to regardless of regardless of being a feminist or anything like that. It's just, it just has more to deal with whether you believe in God or not. And that's fine. It doesn't say anything about, again, whatever political or personal ideology leanings you have. So I really wasn't for it being, I'm really of the mind that it didn't really need to be, this whole big plus thing, so that was one of my first videos. And then, another video I did was a reaction to this series called Black People Do or Black People Don't Do. And it was a response to the episode of, Black people don't do atheism, when in fact we do. There are Black people who are non-believers, whether they're still more on the agnostic side. And there are Black atheist groups, Black non-believer groups, like Black Atheists of America. That I know that organization is run by Ayanna Watson. Then there's Black non-believers, which now has a lot, it has spread out to different chapters. Like the main chapter is in Atlanta, and it was started by Mandisa Latifa Thomas. And I know there's a chapter in Michigan, and there's a chapter in Washington, D.C. So there are like non-believer secular atheist organizations that are created mostly by people of color. So apparently Black people do atheism, so including me. So and then after that, I just started talking about other things that I like, or any other things that I care about: feminism, comic books, nerd stuff, video games, things like that. So
Yeah, that's great. Tell us, because it's a little bit off topic, but I think it would be fun and interesting to talk about here for people who don't know your channel. But yeah, your whole comic book side. If you don't mind telling us like a little bit about that and how that comes through in your channel as well.
Oh, okay. So I've been reading comic books for years. I love it. I love the medium. And also, you know, I used to go to music. I went to a music and art school, and then for high school, I took up cartooning. And during my first college years, I took up graphic design. So yeah, I'm really into the medium. I love to draw. I love to read. I'm really an avid fan. And I feel like I'm in a great time now where, you know, when I was younger and we could only, you know, think and hope like, oh man, I wish these stories would come to the big screen. And now within recent years, like, you know, I see all my favorite characters being brought to life on the silver screen. So, and comics also serves as a medium to not just for great storytelling, but to, you know, express certain messages or to sort of function as like a mirror to what's going on in society now. You know, I know that there is a contingent of fans who don't think that's the case, who think that most times comics are apolitical, but even being apolitical is kind of a political stance. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I'm all for it because, you know, we don't just have to use the medium as escapism. It could actually be utilized to talk about things that are important or to, you know, make fun of things that are important, you know, satire and things like that. So
yeah, I would certainly think that dystopic element of comics. I'm getting a little bit of feedback now, but no, it's gone now. Excellent.
Okay.
And so yeah, the idea that, well, yeah, some comics might not be political, but surely there are very profound political themes running through a lot of them. But that's not what I wanted to ask you about. What I'm intrigued by is, what is it about the medium? Is it the uniting of text and images? Or is that what draws you to it, or that you like about it that is unique, or is it something else? And then also, can you maybe give an example of like some of your favorite, either series or comics, the ones that sort of really changed how you thought about them, or you would look forward to them so much, and why?
Oh, well, for me, what drew me to comics at first was, of course, the art, being an art student and drawing, you know, so I was drawn to the artwork and the different pencilists that work on books. You know, the art always draws me in first. It's one of the first things that gets my attention. And then it's the story. And then if, you know, a good art plus a good story equals an awesome book. And what keeps me into the medium now is just, there's just so many good artists nowadays. It's not just people adhering to just, you know, one standard of drawing, you know, like just, you know, the Marvel way of drawing characters, or just, you know, the DC Comics way of drawing characters. Now you see a multitude of different styles, especially with, you know, with the art style and the inking style, whether, you know, it's traditional inkers or, you know, people who ink digitally. So yeah, for me, it's always the art that grabs my attention first. And then once I'm reading it, if the story is good, it definitely grabs out to me. So that's with that. I have a lot of favorite characters and a lot of favorite books. Currently, I just finished getting caught up with the series Saga, which is written by one of my favorite writers, Brian K. Vaughan. He also wrote Why the Last Man, which is another good comic book series. Fiona Staples also co-writes and does the art for Saga. Her art style is really, really good. Another favorite series of mine is Bitch Planet by Kelly Sue DeCormick. I feel like I'm mispronouncing her last name. And most of the time, the art for that is done by Valentine Delandro. I still read X-Men from time to time. I kind of got bored with like the main the big two franchises. I don't really read as much DC comics as I used to. I used to be a really big fan of Green Lantern while Jeff Johns was writing it. But now I mostly read Harley Quinn because it's written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda O'Connor. What else am I reading? I have to get caught up on stuff on like The Walking Dead. I stopped at like book 18, so I have a lot to get caught up on with that. I'm still getting caught up with Fables, which, you know, for me is great because the majority of the stories now are in graphic novel, and I love picking up graphic novels. It's nothing for me to go to like Midtown Comics and pick up like, you know, 2 or 3 graphic novels for me to catch up on stories and stuff like that. You know, it just makes more sense for me financially instead of always buying single issues, even though sometimes depending on the issue, I can't help it. And plus, I tend to give number ones of series a try. So I usually end up picking up a lot of number ones, a lot of single issues, just to see how a book is going to work out. And then if I feel that that I'm really into it, if it really pulls me in, then sometimes I may continue with single issues, or I'll try to wait until the trade comes out.
Okay. And you participated and put up on your channel videos about your being on a panel at a conference, comic conference, right?
Oh yeah. Recently I've put up I started putting up videos of panels from different conventions, as well as now I've started speaking at different indie cons. Like recently, last month I was on a panel at the Women in Comics Con in the Bronx, which is where I reside. So, and I'm part of this collective. It's called Women in Comics NYC International. And excuse me, basically it's a collective of women who either work in the industry in some form, either mainstream, or the majority of the women I find have done some mainstream work, but they mostly do, they're mostly independent. Illustrators, writers, pencilers, colorists, and what I've started doing is every time we have an event, as a or anytime any of our members are at a convention and they're speaking, I tend to record panels that we speak on, just to, get the word out there that, that there are women working in the industry, and sort of, put us out there that, that we're out there and we have things to say, and these are the type of things that we do, and so forth. So, yeah.
This is going to be a rhetorical question, but do you find it very helpful to network, and what are the kinds of topics that come up when you guys do put on these conferences?
Oh, I find it very helpful to network, because the more people you know, the easier it is to have, that foundation of solidarity, because we all worry about the same things. We worry about representation of women in the medium. We worry about the representation of people of color in the medium, and there have been strides and everything, but there's still work that needs to be done. So we usually end up talking about that, whether it's issues within the industry itself, like, not having enough writers of color, not having enough women who are writers, not having enough women who draw the work, who draw our stories or tell our stories, and or dealing with things that, within our little circle, whether it's politics between, who gets chosen to speak at what type of panel and what type of time, because just because there's like there's a place for, you know, more indie creators and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that women still don't go through whatever politics within that sphere, whether it's, you know, gender politics, dealing with sexism from our male counterparts and things of that sort. So
what was your most recent talk on in the panel that you did?
The panel that I was on recently was about misrepresentations of, you know, with race, gender, and sexuality within the comics industry. So, and I was fortunate to be on a panel with women who've worked in the industry, whether it's mainstream, whether it's either with comic books or with different publishing companies, whether being an illustrator or an editor or being a writer and whatnot, and the things that that we navigate in the industry, and seeing how we're represented or misrepresented or not represented at all. So that was pretty much what the talk was, whether it's the lack of women of color or people of color in an industry or in stories, or the lack of full LGBT inclusivity. You know, it's always been, you always see the L and the G, and now you see a little bit more of the T, but the B in LGBT often is, you find that to often be erased from LGBT inclusion. So, and I think we touched on a lot of things in that panel, but one main thing we touched on was the recent to cast the white guy as Iron Fist for the Iron Fist Netflix series that'll be upcoming soon. They chose the actor, I think his name is Finn Jones. He plays the guy who plays Loras on Game of Thrones. They're gonna go with him as Danny Rand for Iron Fist, and a lot of nerds of color were really clamoring for Iron Fist by an Asian person, because an Asian person has been written as Iron Fist before in comic history, but I don't think sometimes there's information that, you know, that fans in general, you know, that was a really big issue that had, you know, nerds on both sides sort of having a back and forth about. So we talked about that. And of course we talked about, you know, how women are still drawn in comics these days, and why comic books like, there's this comic book called Faith, which has a woman she's a big girl, but she's a superhero. She can fly and stuff like that. And you really don't see that where someone who is not, you know, who does not have, like, you know, the standard superwoman shape, is the star of her own book, and it's actually doing pretty well. So we talked about that, and little things that each of the artists and the writers have done to push inclusivity, you know, in their own ends. So
thank you. Very interesting. I learned a lot. Taking a bit of a turn, you talked a bit about sexism and atheism, and also being the idea of African American atheists or being a Black atheist. So I was wondering now if we could kind of go through that process of asking you kind of like whatever you feel comfortable sharing, like in terms of your own experience growing up, and maybe also talk about if it's relevant, which I'm sure it is, about like the role of women and feminism in that time period too, because it seems like a lot of these things have been connected for you for a very long time.
Well, it's sort of like with certain labels, you're already going into the battle with like a minus against you, and like the more labels that you have on yourself, it, you know, the difficulties you have become compounded. Like, it's bad enough that, you know, I already deal with things because I'm Black. But add to the fact that, you know, I'm Black and I'm an atheist and I'm a feminist, you know, the difficulties I deal with are just become compounded. They all seem to intersect. So I came to atheism. It was a very it was a you know, slow but steady path, because though I wasn't a member of any church, I hated going to church. You know, I've always hated going to church, you know, because it was always more of a, you know, something that, you know, that, oh, I have to do, like I have to go to church and I have to believe in God and I have to do these certain things. And I'm very much the type, when people try to tell me that oh, you have to do this, you have to believe in this, you have to go to this place, I rebel. So, so my journey to non-belief was a pretty slow but steady process. Once I got away from being made to have to go to church, in my early college years, I was still curious about, you know, whatever is out there, if there is anything out there. I was very interested in, you know, developing some personal spirituality. So, you know, I joined a Wiccan and Pagan club, and then that's like when I guess more of the context of learning that there are more than just, you know, the big three out there that people may believe in, and, you know, learning more about religion on more of, I guess, in a historical context. So I joined the club and I learned about, you know, Wicca and paganism and things like that. And that, you know, like I said, that broadened my knowledge base on more of a historical context. But for a while, I was still agnostic. I was still, you know, like maybe there's something out there, but, you know, does it really matter? Because, you know, I don't really do any harm to anybody. You know, I try to, you know, do the best I can and be as, you know, as good a person as I can. So does it really matter? And it was when I started making friends with more with Black people who were atheists, Black atheists. That's when I really started considering, like, you know, I'm not really religious and I don't really need it to be a good person anyway. So do I need to hang on? Do I need to hang on to the belief that, you know, that maybe there is something out there, or there is something out there? Not really, because it doesn't really come into my sphere of consciousness during the day. I mostly worry about, you know, what do I have to do to get through the day, or things like that. I'm not really thinking of, you know, oh, you know, if I don't do this, then I won't, you know, go to heaven or hell or something like that. You know, I was already past that notion, because I kind of saw it for what it was, and it felt more like a means to control people's behavior. And I'm really not for anyone trying to control my behavior. I'm also really not for proselytizing or spreading the word or anything like that. So all those things made it really, really difficult to be a member of any religious denomination or anything like that. So yeah, you know, it just came to making a decision, you know, asking myself, like, do I really need to hang on to the possibility of a belief? You know, I don't go to church, so no. You know, I know a little more historically about religions and how they're sort of, you know, plagiarisms of each other, or from you know, systems that came before them, and all that. So just being more aware of that, and, you know, being aware of, you know, how it was written over so many times, and how other writers have added things onto it and things like that. Just, you know, just being more aware of, you know, how scripture books came to be and things like that. It just really made it harder for me to want to hold on to any real semblance of belief. So about a year or so ago, I think it's been like maybe more than 2 years, and I was just like, yeah, I'm an atheist. I don't really I don't really believe in this stuff, and I really don't have to be, you know, as good a person as I can possibly be, you know, and whatever happens, happens. Cause, you know, growing up, you know, my family's Baptist. So they're very much into, you know, come to the church and, you know, become a member of the church, and, you know, so that all of our family members can be in heaven. I remember my aunt gathering all the family together. This is when I was about 18, 19. And she said that she had a dream, and that it worried her. So she wanted to make sure that everybody in the family was doing their best to make sure that, you know, that we'd all be in heaven together and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm not really for this pressure to be a part of something that I really don't feel a part of. So yeah.
Are you very satisfied with where you landed now with your atheism? You feel settled? It's not like there's a question anymore running around in your head or anything?
Oh yeah, I'm pretty settled. I mean, there's the good thing that I think I retain a healthy sense of I don't know. And you know what? I'm okay with that. You know, because you know how sometimes people, you know, they try to, you know, God, what's the name of that? Like, oh, well, what if you don't know? Like, oh, well, what if, you know, what if the end times come and, you know, and you're wrong and I'm right and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, are you trying to scare me or something? If you're right and I'm wrong, then you're right and I'm wrong. You know, but you know, I'm not gonna, you know, spend the rest of my life that, you know, that I'm living right now. I'm not gonna spend my life, you know, worrying about like, oh my God, what if my grandmother's right and I'm wrong? And like, no, like life is more complicated than that. So Pascal's wager, there we go. It popped in my head the last minute. Yeah, like I'm not gonna spend the rest of, you know, every waking moment worrying about that. Like, oh God, what if they're right and I'm wrong? No, I've got shit to do while I'm here, you know. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They spend time worrying about this imaginary place that they think they know exists, but no one really knows. But there's a really big chance that it doesn't. But they're more worried about getting to that place than actually living a full life, like right now. You know what I mean? So, or letting that affect how they live their life right now, you know? So I'm very much for concentrating, you know, on what's going on in life right now, and, you know, having as full a life as possible so that when that time comes, there's no lingering question in your mind about, you know, oh, well, you know, have I done this? Have I done that? You know, what if I pass right now and there is nothing, you know, why do that to yourself? Why, you know, I drive myself crazy with, you know, with the more than healthy respect I have for our own mortality and stuff like that. I can't imagine driving myself insane over, you know, what if I get to the pearly gates and God says no, and just, you know, does like that, and, you know, I start, you know, swirling like Kenny down the hill in South Park. So no.
One of the things that when I hear people say that they converted an atheist and you listen to that person's stories, what they tend to be are stories about people who were mad at God, or who decided, you know, just like they for whatever reason, they kind of didn't believe in God, but they didn't go any further. Whereas if someone's really gone through the process of looking for information and educating themselves and trying to find the truth, and they end up at the end of that process being atheists, they're very secure in their atheism.
Yeah, like I'm totally fine with it. And it's like, and then the main thing, like I said, for me is I have no problem admitting that there are things that I don't know. There are things that I don't know about the universe. I'm not a scientist. I'm an artist. You know what I mean? Like I'm in school for graphic design, not for biochemistry or astrophysics and stuff like that. I leave that shit to the people who studied it and are in that field. And, you know, pretty much whatever they say, I tend to go by, you know. So, And that's kind of another reason why I'm glad I got out of the phase of arguing with people of faith about things that, you know, that they and I don't really know that much about. Because I'm not an expert on, you know, how life came to be. All I know is from what I've read from these people who have studied this their entire life. And that's, you know, I'm going by that. You know, meanwhile, you're going by something that's, you know, been written over and over and over again. And there's really, you know, it doesn't really mesh well with what we know about the natural world. But you know, it really makes no sense for me to argue for it all the time, because again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not in a qualified position to really go toe to toe with anybody like that. You know what I mean? And plus, like I said, I don't like proselytizing in any form. And I kind of feel like, especially with new atheism, a lot of times sometimes it veers on you know, the path of proselytizing. And I've never been the type to try to convert anybody or deconvert anyone. You know, I'm very much for people going on their own path to non-belief, if that's where they're going. You know what I mean? So I'm very much for people going on their own path and finding out their own truth when it comes to that stuff, because I never tolerated anyone trying to proselytize to me or try to convert me or deconvert me. So, you know, and now I'm very much a live and let live when it comes to that, because, you know, we live in a world and there are billions of people who are believers, but there are other things that, you know, that we have in common with each other. You know, either it's, you know, we're all you know, there are believers who are feminists and who are Democrats, or, you know, more, you know, progressives and stuff like that, like I am, you know. And when it comes down to it, and having to, you know, see the forest for the trees, you know, like we have to get along in this world with people who, you know, we may have differences when it comes to, you know, religion, you know, belief and non-belief, but there are other things that we have some commonalities with. And I think especially like now, when we're facing the possibility of, you know, an asshole like Trump being president, that things like whether, you know, I'm an atheist or you're a believer or whatever, I tend to not really care about that difference when it comes to, you know, current things going on politically and, you know, in
President
the States.
Trump.
Yeah. Ugh. President Trump. Well, I want to run in the bathroom and throw up right now.
Okay, we'll move on. So getting back to feminism and also intersectionality, because I think at this point they kind of, you know, go hand in hand. So in terms of like you're becoming aware of issues, and I don't want to say like women's issues, but sort of like the whole deal that goes along with intersectionality of these problems. Was it, I mean, when I've talked to previous sort of Black feminists, the general consensus has been racial issues are more important to me, which I totally get, because that's obviously the first barrier. So it's like for the women that I talked to, they were like, I'm more committed to civil rights, and then on particularly women's issues, sort of as a separate category, that's right and next in order to me. And I don't want to say that they speak for everyone, but when it comes to feminism, obviously as a white woman, I didn't have anything racially to deal with growing up. So my first experience was feminism, and I wanted to acknowledge that. I know that probably wasn't yours, because, you know, you came up in a different experience from me. So I wanted to make sure I didn't word that in a way that's just like, tell me about your feminism, as if that's the only part of you that, you know, had to deal with those kinds of issues. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, I totally understand. Yeah. That's often a conundrum that comes with being a Black feminist, is usually sometimes we're put in this place where we're made to choose between, you know, our race, our ethnic group, or our gender. You know, we're often put in a place where we have to make people recognize that we can't put aside any of those things, you know. And especially when it comes to like civil rights, you know, it's all, there's a saying that, you know, all the men are black, and then when it comes to gender rights, all the women are white, you know, but some of us are brave. It's definitely been a struggle, especially like for me and my feminist awakening. For me, it came from following so many awesome, intelligent Black women and Black feminists on Twitter. And one day I asked for recommendations for books on Black feminism. And of course, I got, you know, recommendations from the usual suspects: Audre Lorde, Bell Hooks, Angela Davis, this book right here, Women, Race, and Class. This book, along with Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde and Feminist Theory from Margin to Center by Bell Hooks, and also For Colored Girls, the Courier poem book. Those 4 books were served as the fulcrum of my foundation as a Black feminist, and it really like made sense for me, because the issues that they spoke of with dealing with the feminist movement in their time, and seeing what's going on with the feminist movement in our time, you know, still dealing with the issues of, you know, erasure of Black feminists, of feminists of color, and things like that. It's always been an issue from the beginning, you know, and even though we've made strides in, you know, equality for women, those issues of erasure, and being expected to do the footwork and things like that, those issues really haven't gone away. And I'm glad that more of us are speaking up on it now, and that more feminists are being made aware of it now. It's weird that I was always more into intersectionality before I even knew of the word, knew that the word existed and who made it, you know? So I was always for inclusivity of everyone, of everyone who is not, you know, who's not white and cis, you know, because because all of our issues matter. And to sort of be told that, you know, in feminism that we have to put our issues aside to forward, you know, I guess the greater good or something, to be told that from white feminists, and also to be told that from, you know, from Black men, you know, in the civil rights movement. It's really something. It's been a struggle,
It's
you know,
hard to see how you can be part of an equal or civil rights movement when part of the movement is saying to the other part of the movement, you need to wait your turn.
Yeah,
how is that equal?
and it's weird that some people don't get that. It's like, how can you have a movement for equality and yet tell people within the movement that they have to settle for something that's less than equal, you know? And some people just really don't get it. And I think it's, you know, when it comes to the race issues, I think it really has to, I blame this perspective that we got, like, in, I guess, from 99 into 2000 beyond, this sort of, you know, post-racial perspective that we're, you know, that we're past race, hence, you know, post-racial and things like that. And we're really not. We're really not. And it's weird that, you know, that people who try, when people, like, you know, come to me in my mentions and try to tell me that I'm wrong, and in doing so, they prove to me that I'm right. You know what I mean? It's sort of like that saying, or I guess that law that when people try to tell you that, oh, feminism isn't needed, the way in which they go about telling you proves that feminism is still needed. You know, so it's like, just, I like when people do that. So, you know, they tend to do the work for me. Like, hey, so I can just show it to my friends, like, hey, this is why feminism is still needed, guys, because this response right here.
Yeah, so Speaker Paul Ryan has an ad that's basically a presidential ad. So I'm getting a bit of feedback, so I'm just going to mute till I'm done. Okay, and in that ad, he says, well, we shouldn't have a nation that's, or political discourse that's built on identity politics. We should look for the things that bring us together and join us. And that, well, yeah, but then what you're doing is saying, here are all the things that we agree on, and or here are all the things that, you know, like we have in common as values, but all the things that make it hard for people to realize those opportunities, all of the barriers that they face based on discrimination or because of historic discrimination, and they're still paying the price. You know, their family's income are still lagging behind everybody else's because of poverty that's gone back for generations. And then growing up in school districts that are underfunded because the tax base isn't equal to the suburban lake property, you know, locked off property places down the road on the lakeside that are really nice. Then you can't really join around opportunities of or values of aspiring to reach your potential and of prosperity if you aren't willing to see all those identity politics, which really are the things that are, you know, stopping a lot of these people from doing those things. You can't ignore the problem and say we should just concentrate on the things that we all want when the people, and a lot of the people can't get those things because of the things you won't talk about. So I've got you off now.
Oh, thanks. And that's essentially it. It's like people like to, I get that life is complicated and we do our best to try to simplify things as much as possible, but we don't have to universalize everything. Like, it is okay that there are things that are different. Like, it's totally okay that, you know, I'm descended from people who, you know, our genetic adaptation is, you know, I can take in more sunlight than you. That's totally okay. And it's totally okay for you to recognize that I have that adaptation. And it's totally okay for me to recognize that you sort of don't. It's you know, it's the things that people, you know, ascribe to, you know, said adaptations that make it the problem. You know, and those things haven't gone away. You like, and I remember I would say this all the time on my Twitter. It's like, how can people think that centuries worth of, you know, this type of propaganda that's seeped into, that we've internalized? We've had over what, 400 years or so to internalize racism and things like that. And how can centuries of that stuff be totally undone by 50 to 60 years of, you know, civil rights movement? Like, it can't, because, you know, the systems are still in place, whether they're, you know, systemic or on the institutional level. And they're still continuing to this day. They just have new names like gentrification, you know, and, you know, gerrymandering is still a thing, you know, and, you know, there are still communities that are based on those institutional things. Like, you can just look at Chicago and look at, you know, the housing covenants that still exist. And when, you know, from their inception, which was to keep Black people out, you know, and those things still happen today. Like, you know, I don't want to bring it back to Donald Trump, but he's been known and he's been sued for, you know, trying for doing everything he can to keep Black people and people of color out of the real estate, from renting the real estate that he runs, you know. So those things haven't gone away, you know. And another thing, like with things like affirmative action, people think, oh, well, you know, we have this, so there's no reason that, you know, Black people can't get their shit together or whatever. And it's like, if you look historically, the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action were white women, you know, because
it's in-group stuff.
You're
meeting the need, but doing it with like the least distance from the norm possible.
Exactly. Like, oh, I really don't want women, but I'll certainly take this Black woman. I'll certainly take this white woman over any of these darkies. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you know, that, and now, you know, the prison industrial complex, which sadly you know, people that, you know, sadly our group made honorary Black really had a hand in starting off and not shying from it and being proud of it, you know what I mean? And, you know, basically being proud of starting, like, you know, the new peonage, you know, and these things, these constructs still exist, as well as, you know, social and cultural assumptions when it comes to people of color. You know, like every time, you know, a police officer shoots down an unarmed Black person, or you know what I mean, it's always like, oh, well, what were you doing wrong? And, you know, what were they doing wrong? And they should have just, you know, listened to the police officer. And it's like, hey, you know, the police have a history of killing us for less things. And you don't think that these practices still continue? You don't think that people still carry around these archaic, you know, things when it comes to Black people? And it's like, of course they do. You know, ignorance gets passed down from generation to generation. So it's not about, you know, waiting until all the old racists die off. There are new racists being, you know, created like every day, because, as I said, it's passed down from generation to generation. So, and you know, with the proliferation of like Twitter, like, forget about it. You know, I think I've you know, I think I've been called the N-word more times on Twitter than I have in my entire life, you know? So
see, there's a difference. As being a white woman, I get called a cunt first. So, you know, that's my privilege, I guess, you know, whereas you're defined racially. So, you know, you have to deal with the racial stuff and the sexist stuff. I only have to deal with being called a cunt. See?
Yeah, you're called a cunt. I deal with being called, you know, a nigger cunt or a monkey cunt, yeah, or something like that, you know. So, and it's okay to recognize those differences, because then you become to, you know, to form, to make any movement better, it has to become broader. You have to, you know, broaden your scope of things that are an issue. You know, just because you don't think these things are, you know, that big of an issue, it doesn't mean that they stop happening, or that it goes away. It just means that your movement is that more crippled, because you don't know how to do anything for groups that are in need. A while we just sort of get tired and just, you know, we're going to go do our own thing. And then we hear the cries about, oh, well, where's the unity? And why can't we come together? Why do we have to be separated on, you know, these race issues and stuff like that? And it's like, really?
People need to acknowledge that part of it. I mean, I think that, you know, I guess, and I wasn't being facetious about my privilege. I don't deal with racism on my channel.
I know you do.
Yeah, and I didn't want to, but for the viewers, just in case anyone thought I was trying to, but yeah, it is, you know, just acknowledging that, yeah, there are people like you who, when they speak up on feminism in the, you know, in the YouTube community, you're going to get a wider range of abuse and more abuse than I'm going to get. And it's just because of, like you said, the differences in our background. It's not because we're necessarily saying different things, but if I don't at least, as an ally, acknowledge that and, you know, help raise a voice to that, and also to make it, you know, a better place, or to just have your back, well, then yeah, if people want to break off and form smaller communities where they will have your back, I totally get that.
Yeah, it's sort of like, you know, sometimes it's I don't blame other Black feminists or feminists of color who sort of are like, you know, they sort of develop this early Malcolm X, you know, Magneto stance, where it's like, where people are like, oh, well, what can I do to help you? Nothing. Step aside, Miss Becky. We got this. You know, and so navigating this sphere, being who I am, and the labels that I don't shy away from, it can get really difficult. And I've definitely had my taste of what happens when you are vocal of certain things within, you know, the atheist community and the feminist community. I've definitely had my taste of, you know, what happens, especially when you go after, you know, people's sacred atheist cows and people and things like that, and call them out on certain things. The interactions have been interesting, to say the least.
I mean, I certainly, on certain videos, my downvotes are a sign of pride. My downvotes on some videos are showing that I'm pissing people off who actually need to kind of like have their views challenged. And the fact that they can't silence me, the only thing they can do is downvote it and write something mean in the comments. That'll make a good argument. Not say something that makes me question my worldview in any meaningful way.
Exactly.
And that's their impotent little rage that I can't silence you. You're saying things about feminism and I can't make you stop. So downvote. And I just have to laugh at that. I mean, I have a pride in my videos that have those huge downvote numbers.
Yeah, I tend to shake my head these days because, you know, being me and bringing up things like, you know, white privilege and white fragility and things like that. Like there's definitely videos where, you know, that definitely have more downvotes, and I also get called racist the most, and it's mostly from white guys who are like, oh, so, you know, since you don't like Gary Edwards' opinion and stuff, I guess you're just racist. You just hate all white people. Just say it. And,
I disagree with Gary. Nobody ever said that to me.
And intersectionality just means that you know, it's just a buffer for you to say how much you hate white people. And so I'm just like, if that's what you took from it, then I mean, okay, you know, like
you could say that, but you'd be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. You can, you know, you're definitely allowed to say that. You can say whatever you want, you know, but you're just clearly, you know, wrong. Why do you have to be so wrong on the internet? Like, and everyone can see you and stuff, you know? And it in a way, it sort of makes me a bit annoyed, as, you know, to see how much anti-feminism is just sort of okay on YouTube nowadays. It's sort of like it's like the in thing. It's like a she thing to do these days. You could start, you know, you don't even have to believe in anything that you say. You can just decide, oh, I'm just going to make anti-feminist videos. I totally don't believe in anything that I'm saying, but I'm going to make a couple of videos and, you know, get like, you know, 10,000 subscribers, and then then get a Patreon, and then get fan funding, and I'm going to get all this money and get all these subscribers. And it happens. Like, I totally feel that had I not come out more and, you know, let people know more of, you know, how much of a leftist or a progressive or whatever I am, you know, I probably could have made a killing as like a Black conservative on YouTube. And then make this one video revealing, surprise, gotcha, bitch, I'm not any of these things whatsoever. Thanks for the subs. Thanks for the Patreon money. Peace. I mean, because I mean, we all know that when it comes to people coming into, like, you know, the YouTube sphere and, you know, bilking people out of their money, they don't care, right?
Hate sells.
Hate sells, definitely. Yeah. So, you know.
But on the opposite end, what are the kinds of things, you know, for your channel, when you make a video, what is it that drives you to make something into content? What makes you go, yeah, I'm gonna make a video on this?
Basically, I really want to have my thoughts and my feelings known about it. Well, mostly my thoughts. Well, yeah, my feelings too. Fuck it. You know, because I get in this I get in the habit of trying to make sure that I sound, you know, very, you know, objective and rational and not too emotional, you know, and that's something internally in me that I have to work on, because no matter how calm and collected I express myself, whether through a tweet, through a Facebook post, or even in a video, I'm still going to be called, you know, an angry Black bitch, or thought of as an angry Black bitch or whatever. So it really doesn't matter how I express myself. And, you know, and especially, you know, as women, sometimes it really doesn't always matter if we're calm and collected and stuff like that. We're, you know, haters are still going to accuse us of being emotional, even if we show, like, if we're totally Wednesday Addams and show no emotion whatsoever. So thoughts and feelings. And what I put into when I go into scripting videos and filming them is not just responding to the person, whoever I'm responding to, or what have you. I really try to put out as much information as I can about a certain thing, you know, because I don't want people to think that I'm always just mouthing off and there's no foundation of like fact or anything behind it. You know what I mean? I don't.
You have factual integrity.
Yeah, factual integrity, you know, intellectual honesty. I don't want to be one of those people who just say things and you can't find, you know, how I've formed my perspective or anything like that. You know, like shooting off, you know, half-assed and, you know, not having anything to show for it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's pretty much how I go about videos. I try not to do direct responses to people anymore because I don't think they really challenge the other person to go back and think, you know, maybe there's something within their perspective that might be wrong, or, you know, they may have had the wrong idea about, or anything like that. It really just becomes a sparring match on who can you know, sound more correct or anything, especially, you know, with certain people. It's like, yes, you know, I am a man and I like I'm a man who's very into science, or I am a scientist, or I am very much you know, I am a naturalist and I don't really accept anything from the social sciences or humanities unless it's philosophy or economics. Then it's totes okay. And yes, that was me. Yeah, that's me throwing some shade at people, but I don't care.
Oh, now there'll be a response video to your commenting on not responding to videos anymore.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I'm going to make a video, a response to this response that Foxy not wanting to respond to people. So I guess that, you know, her foundations are weak because she can't stand to go up against people in debate or whatever. And it's like, it's not that I can't stand to, it's that I don't care to. It's a waste of my time. And, you know, I can go into how entitled people feel into getting like a response from you, whether it's a YouTube video or a comment or tweets on on Twitter. Oh my God, people feel so entitled to your attention. You know, you could be tweeting something just randomly and someone will just pop in and be like, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, and you're like, this is my opinion. It's really not up for debate. I'm not going to debate you on it. Whatever. Oh, so you're weak and I won, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, what? Like, who are you? And it's like, people think that just because, you know, yes, we have freedom of speech and yes, we can speak, they're so focused on that, they don't stop to think, should I speak? Should I say something? Or would shutting the fuck up, you know, or, you know, staying quiet be the smarter option or the better option? You know, just
Yeah.
Not many people think of that, take that option, especially on the internet. It's like, God, if more people took that option, the world would be a little peaceful, just a little more peaceful.
So in full disclosure, I have I don't want to say love-hate relationship. I get on with Gary, but we disagree on things. We haven't had a serious blow-up, but we certainly have areas where we don't see eye to eye and others that we do. So that's my interaction with him. But in terms of feeling entitled to a response to a response, I have that too. Probably not, I don't know, I haven't been doing it quite as long, so maybe not as often or as long as you. But occasionally we'll get somebody who will tweet me something saying, here, I made this video about you. Someone I've never heard of, someone I don't recognize from the comments. And I'm like, oh, I got other things to do. I'm not going to go watch your video. And yeah, they feel like, well, why haven't you responded to this person's response? Like, because I don't care. Like, they're entitled to their opinion too. I gave my view. It's usually on my patriarchy videos. Here's my my comments on, or my things on patriarchy. Here's my evidence. Here's my theory. Here's my arguments. Here's my citations. Other people want to go and have comments on that video. That's fine, but I'm not going to go and watch your stuff and then respond to it because I have a lot of other videos I don't have time to make. And so unless it's somebody, like I had an interaction, Noel Plum had come to my videos, we talked a couple times, and I had very specific things I would really like to see Noel make better videos, because he's clearly capable of it. But he just did a really shoddy job at that rape culture thing. He didn't read around properly, he didn't look for proper examples, he didn't really think about the question before trying to answer it. And he would be really, really great if he did all those things. Because he's very engaging as a person, very energetic on the screen. He just needs to get his arguments better, and his arguments need to go back to getting the facts right. That would make better arguments, because his conclusions would then be based in evidence, not in hypotheticals. So I mean, I've done a couple very narrow responses. But yeah, just making a video doesn't mean I'm going to take my time out of my day, watch it, and then take more time out of my day to make a video responding to your video response to me.
Yeah, and like especially like people who like to make like really like long video responses, like take 30 minutes or so to respond to you, and it's like, motherfucker, I got shit to do. Even if I don't have anything to do, I'm not gonna sit and watch a 30-minute reply to me, and knowing that you don't read anything, you don't really research anything, like that you haven't done the work that I've done to inform myself. You haven't done that work. You haven't read the books I've read. You haven't read the articles that I've read. So you're basically coming in, you're mouthing off, and you have no foundation of knowledge to really sound off on. You're just talking because you just want to talk. Like, oh, you said something I don't like, and I don't know much about what you're talking about, but freedom of speech, and I'm going to just talk anyway. Like, no.
Yeah. Freedom of speech is not freedom to force people to listen to you.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do it. I mean, there are tons of people mocking me. Or not tons, I'm not that important. But there are a few people who've taken pot shots at me. I really don't care. I honestly do not care. Another friend on Facebook said, oh, did you see this video? I'm like, what is it? The guy had like 78 subs. He was like complaining that I blocked people. Like, I don't have time for this bullshit.
Yeah, and it really...
Your feelings are not worth my time.
It killed me the most. I forget how I got to your channel. Someone recommended it, or someone on my feed liked it, and I was like, wait a second. And I went and I started watching your evidence that patriarchy is a real thing videos, and I'm like, holy shit, this is a social scientist. She's using the scientific method. She's laying out reasons, all this, citing all her sources and laying out hypotheticals, and the evidence matches up, and everything just, doing everything a scientist should do. And I'm like, I really like these videos. And then I look in the comment section, and I'm like, I'm really not surprised nobody else does, because it's like, if it's not natural science, then it's Hufflepuff. It's like, it's fluff, it's marshmallows. It doesn't mean anything unless it's philosophy, and or economics. I'm telling you, I'm gonna keep going back to that because it's true. Like, and I've had like interactions like with Thunderfoot about this too. He'll talk about race and like know nothing about like critical race theory and gender theory and things like that. He'll know nothing about it, but will think just because he's a biochemist or whatever the hell he is, that he has intellectual weight to talk on things. And it's like, you don't. I mean, and also that doesn't mean that I'm censoring his free speech, everybody. Like newsflash. I'm just saying that he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, and suggesting that maybe he should shush. But I can't stop anybody from being quiet. Nobody can, because nobody can stop me from being quiet. I'm going to say what the hell I'm going to say, But the difference is one of us has a foundation of knowledge on the things that we talk about, and the other person doesn't. You can't tell me nothing. You know what I mean? And it's like, and it's so typical for us to be, to be hit with, with complaints of how we're censoring other people's speeches by telling them to shut up, or just saying we don't care or whatever. And it's like, no, you can say whatever the hell you want. I don't have to listen. I don't have to respond. You know what I mean? Like, we have other things going on in our life, and you're not entitled to, our attention. Even if I don't have anything going on, I could just be sitting here and, like, petting my cat. But that's still more important than responding to whatever, you're saying.
Yeah, the hate comments and, the comments are tweets or anything else, insulting tweets. Yeah, if you start a comment off with insulting the person making the video, I'm not entirely sure why you think people are going to take your response that seriously.
Yeah, it's like and not even insulting you, but like, also insulting, like, thinking that, you who has done the time in school and in college, to get your degree, and just coming in and, thinking that because they've watched a few Thunderfoot videos about Anita Sarkeesian, that they can match you intellectually. And it's like, really? Like, that takes a certain amount of privilege and entitlement to think that it's just, and it just made me, it just makes me so, not totally angry, but it just annoys me to no end. And it's like, I don't have any social science degree. All I can do is read up on enough things that I can. But even me just doing that, and then dealing with someone who thinks that they have refuted, years of information that it took me no time at all to find, with like one comment. And it's like, really? And you guys say that you're for, rational and logical and, looking for the truth of things, and yet you say these anti-intellectual and intellectually, faulty things. And it's like, really? It's like, that's why sometimes I really think, if it's not natural science, these people turn so anti-intellectual. And it's really sad, and it says a lot about the state where, where, like, I guess YouTube, atheism, or internet nouveau atheism, or whatever is that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. Although there's also, getting a little bit of back, please, mute you for a quick second. There's a BBC show they did way back in the 70s called I, Claudius, and in it there are two actors who were talking about the theater, and one turns to the other one and said, oh, I tried to be in the theater, but, there was, it's about who you know, not what you know, and jobs go to friends and people who pay people off. The theater isn't what it once was. And the other actor turns to him and says, yes, and you know what else? It never was what it was. And I feel like that with YouTube comments. I actually feel like, not that things are great, and that we shouldn't be upset about them, but I have a feeling that there probably never was that time of civility, and that if we had YouTube comments like way back in the day during the Civil Rights March, we would be just as depressed at what people were saying then. Maybe probably less than to now, because people are openly calling for the murder of people for trying to get the basic right to vote. But yeah, I think YouTube comments, or any comment section of everything, just shows the underbelly of the country that's how it tries to sell itself as a land of opportunity and hope and bravery and, truth, justice, and the American way. When really you look a little bit under the surface of YouTube comments, there's a lot of ugly things swirling around in there.
Oh, I definitely agree. And also, I used to frequent this, like, video game forum, like, for years back in, I think I joined it. It's called SureYouCan.com. I think it might have gotten a bit better these days, but I mean, back when I was more active, like between 95 to 2000 or so, like the years I was really, really active, it's like, it's that, seeing comments and flame wars, pop off in forums these days, like it, or, back in those days, it really lets you know that there's definitely two Americas, or maybe even more than two Americas, because people think that, oh, we're so post-racial, and we're, this cultural melting pot, especially in certain cities and things like that. And it's like, you just look online.
You watch CW.
Yeah. Just check any online forum for like anything, for on YouTube, for video games, For comic books, forget about it.
Yeah, the image we present to ourselves, you know, like I'm increasingly impressed with the amount of diversity in casting. I was actually reflecting, I was watching because Guilty Pleasure, Sleepy Hollow, and it started out with a predominantly white cast with some Black characters. It's now actually, I think, majority Black cast with some white characters. And it's not like I noticed it or anything. I was just sort of reflecting on issues of diversity, going, wait, actually, since the show started, and we're seeing things like, you know, How to Get Away with Murder and other shows that have really dynamic casts with people of a wide array of sexual orientations, and the issues of race aren't necessarily covered up, but they're also not kind of like the plot. You know, like in some crime dramas, the whole thing about the racial issues are always geared toward the African American community. And so that's how race issues. So, I mean, I think in the media, there's a lot of progress that's being made, but, you know, you're right. You just go underneath the surface and there's a lot of work still to be done. I think, sadly, your mic is starting to make that weird vibrating sound. I don't know if mine is making that underwater sound too. So I thought, if we could maybe wrap this up, although it's been enjoyable, and I could keep going, but I've noticed that I think we've been going for like an hour and 15 minutes already.
Yeah, it's totally fine. We can wrap up.
Yeah, because I'd like to do this talk and continue it, but I want to make sure the sound is good. So I thought if we wrapped up now, then it gives us a reason to do a part 2.
Yeah, we can do a part 2. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. And I love these because, well, I mean, I get to talk to really interesting people like yourself. I don't have to do a lot of prep. I just have to sit here and listen and then wait for you to say interesting things and then ask you questions. Like, expand on the interesting thing a bit more.
Guys, she thought I said some interesting things. Got her.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. We're going to talk a little bit off air. And for all of you watching, thanks so much. We had a peak of 11 viewers. And yeah. So there's already a link for the FoxyJazzabelle channel in the description box below. Go watch, sub, enjoy, like. And I will be doing a video, guys, on the Patreon Hangout that I'm having next weekend. And I'll also give you a little bit of a preview. There was a person on here on YouTube who is a sub of mine. She was struggling with issues of homelessness. And so for those of you who are my patrons, I wanted you to know that your donation to me from last month has gone to help her and secure her financially so that she can not live night to night in a hotel room, not knowing if there was going to be enough money to pay for the room the next day. So that I just sort of repurposed your contributions in order to help somebody who has been a supporter of my channel and very nice, and I wanted to give a little something back, but I didn't have any of my own money, so I gave them yours. But I think you guys would approve. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want to give Foxy, you want to say a little sign off to everybody who's watching?
Thanks for tuning in to watch me talk about random stuff, and yeah, woohoo! Thanks for having me, Kristi.
No worries. And yeah, everyone, thanks for watching all the way to the end. I've been Kristi, and you've been awesome as well. I think that's the last line. Okay, bye.